Hi there, my name is Max and I'm a tutor here at Britsent, and today I'll be giving you a lesson on why you shouldn't use the first person perspective in academic writing. When writing academic essays, it's important to keep the tone very formal and objective, using cited sources to support your argument rather than relaying information as your own personal opinion. By avoiding using the first person, this assumes the focus is the writing itself rather than the author's opinion. An example of this is instead of saying, "In this essay I will argue," you would simply say, "This essay will argue." This is the style we use when we put forward objective statements supported by facts. If we use the personal pronoun I, the facts run the risk of coming across as the author's own opinion rather than as validated evidence. Overall, this will weaken the credibility of the argument and the research in question. Common examples of the personal opinion found in academic writing which shouldn't be there are, "I believe," "I think," "I would argue that," or "I would say that." So instead of using these, we switch and we put them in the third person perspective. So now let's have a look at 3 examples we can use to replace the first person perspective. In each example, I'll give a first example which will be using the first person, followed by a corrected version using the third person perspective. After each of these, I'll also give an explanation. Furthermore, listen closely to the new phraseology and vocabulary that I introduce in each new example. So let's get started. Okay, so example number 1. I'm writing this paper to discuss what I believe to be the direct violation of human rights suffered by the Rohingya people in Myanmar. Now let's say the correct version in the third person perspective. This paper will examine the multiple sources of evidence that elucidate the direct violation of human rights suffered by the Rohingya people in Myanmar. So in the first example, the author simply states what they believe to be true, rather than stating that they have evidence and facts that can support this claim. By using the phrase, "what I believe to be true," this indicates that the sentence doesn't have any definitive claim to truth. In the second example, by noting that the paper will refer to multiple sources of evidence, the reader understands that this will be based on facts rather than just on the author's opinion. Of course, if you are to make this statement, it's important that you do have the sources and the evidence to back up this claim. Okay, so let's take a look at example number 2. Having read about the rise of surveillance technologies in China, I can clearly see that the central government in Beijing wants to carefully monitor its citizens. Now let's hear the improved version in third person. The rise of surveillance technologies in China clearly demonstrates that the central government in Beijing is seeking to carefully monitor its citizens' movements and behavior. The implications of these new draconian measures have been closely analysed by, and then you would cite the author, in their paper, and then you would cite the paper. So as we see in the second example, by stating that something is the case rather than that it's just your opinion, the tone of the writing is much more formal and objective. By going on to clarify which sources of evidence you've used to reach this conclusion, the reader will understand that your writing is based on evidence and truth rather than merely your own interpretation or opinion. In academic writing, you never need to overtly state that what you're saying is based on what you've read, as all good academic writing should stem from reading and research. Okay, let's have a look at example number 3. After I completed a series of structured interviews, I found that many city councils across the north of England are suffering from a lack of money. Now let's hear the improved version in third person. Through the use of structured interviews, it was found that many city councils across the north of England are facing adverse conditions due to a lack of economic support. So in this example, the writing benefits significantly from removing the I and simply stating that the evidence was reached through a series of structured interviews. Both statements offer exactly the same information, but the second version in third person maintains a much more objective and formal tone, which is what we're looking for in academic writing. Furthermore, by stating "it was found that" rather than saying "I found that," this enforces the fact that the evidence was deduced from a series of interviews rather than just given as the author's opinion or their assumption after taking an interview. Okay, so those are 3 examples which demonstrate why it's beneficial to use the third-person perspective instead of the first in all academic writing. And always remember, it's always better to refer to cited sources and evidence to support your claim rather than just stating something as your opinion or your assumption. So I hope this has been useful, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!